Right now, out in California, there's probably an eager real estate investor signing a lease.
Oh, almost certainly.
Yeah, and it's a lease that is just going to drag them into a literal nightmare. I mean, we're talking licensing failures, state fines, just massive financial losses.
Huge losses. Yeah.
And it's wild because the reason why is so simple. It's because they confused a passive housing model with like a 247 healthcare business.
It's a phenomenal miscalculation.
Right. They saw a chance to make a positive impact, serve a vulnerable population, generate income, but they fundamentally misunderstood the regulatory trapdoor they just stepped on.
And it happens constantly. I mean, from a distance to someone just running, basic underwriting on a spreadsheet, the two models look identical.
Exactly. They both involve residential real estate.
Right. Both involve populations that need support, but legally, financially, and operationally, treating assisted living facilities and special needs housing as the same thing is, well, it's a fast track to bankrupting your project.
And that is our mission for this deep dive. We're going to untangle these two models for you.
Yes, because clarity is everything here.
It really is. If you are an investor trying to navigate this space, you need to understand how the right strategy can lead to, highly profitable, deeply impactful community investments.
And on the flip side, how the wrong one will just completely destroy your net operating income before you even open your doors.
Before we get into the heavy mechanics of these investments, we should mention our sponsor for today, Flowers and Associates Property Rentals.
And great team.
They really are. And their mission runs perfectly parallel to what we are covering today. They focus on helping landlords to reach maximum rental income through housing with a specific focus on special needs housing.
Which is so critical. They really understand the financial and, frankly, the operational nuances of this specific asset class.
Absolutely. Also, just a quick note on our scope for today. We are focusing heavily on California because, well, its regulatory environment is a beast.
A complete beast, yeah.
But we will try to do this type of discussion on every state as we move forward.
Which is a necessary journey, I think, because while every state has its own, labyrinth of local zoning and licensing codes,
Right.
the core dynamic we are analyzing today, which is that strict dividing line between providing real estate and providing care, that applies to every single market in the country.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the casual, everyday misuse of the term assisted living.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Investors throw that phrase around like it's just a marketing buzzword. I mean, you hear it at real estate meetups all the time.
Yeah, somebody says, oh, I'm going to buy a big single-family home and run it as an assisted living spot for the cash flow.
Exactly. It makes it sound like you're just adding grab bars to a bathroom and then bumping up the rent.
What's fascinating here is how violently the legal reality in California shatters that casual definition.
Completely shatters it.
Yeah, in California, when you say assisted living, you're generally talking about something legally classified as a residential care facility for the elderly or an RCFE.
And we really need to emphasize that this is not just a zoning variance or like a marketing label.
Not at all. It is a highly regulated facility category managed by the California Department of Social Services.
So if you buy a property with that business model in mind, what exactly triggers that RCFE classification?
There are two specific criteria that trigger the designation under the Senior Care Licensing Program.
Okay.
First, the facility is designed for persons who are 60 years of age and over.
Right.
And second, and this is the absolute tripwire for most real estate investors, it provides 24-hour non-medical care and supervision.
Let's pause on the math of that because 24-hour care and supervision completely warps your standard real estate underwriting.
It throws it right out the window.
Right. If I had to have awake, trained staff on site 24/7, that is 168 hours of payroll a week.
Yep.
At California minimum wage, plus payroll taxes, workers' comp, benefits. I mean, I'm looking at $15,000 to $20,000 a month in pure operational overhead. And that's before I even pay the mortgage, property taxes, or utilities. So my NOI calculations from a standard multifamily rental are completely useless here.
The financial consequence of that is exactly why this distinction matters so much.
Yeah.
The moment you cross into providing that 24-hour care, you are no longer a landlord collecting rent.
You're something else entirely.
Exactly. You are operating a licensed healthcare-adjacent environment. You fall directly under Title 22 of the California Code of Regulations.
And I know Title 22 is notorious in the care space, but can you break down the actual mechanisms? Like, what does operating under Title 22 force an investor to do?
It dictates every single facet of your operation. I mean, Title 22 requires strict resident care standards,
Okay.
mandatory staffing ratios, specialized training for dementia care or medication management,
Wow.
and every single employee needs DOJ and FBI background checks. It also enforces incredibly specific physical plant requirements.
So you aren't just maintaining a house anymore.
No, you are maintaining a facility subject to unannounced inspections by the California Community Care Licensing Division.
Unannounced.
Yep. If your water temperature is 2 degrees too high or, your medication logs have a typo, you are hit with immediate citations and potential civil penalties.
That is insane. It sounds like buying an RCFE and thinking you are just getting into real estate is exactly like buying a restaurant.
That is a great way to put it.
Like if you think you're just buying the real estate to be a landlord, you're going to be shocked when you realize you're legally responsible for running the kitchen, hiring the waitstaff, managing the perishable inventory.
And passing rigorous health inspections.
Exactly.
That analogy captures the operational reality perfectly. You really aren't buying a building. You are acquiring a complex operational business that merely happens to take place inside a building.
Right. And the liability that comes with running that quote-unquote kitchen is astronomical.
Huge. You are responsible for the health, safety, and daily survival of vulnerable seniors.
So that means specialized insurance.
Oh, specialized liability insurance premiums that absolutely dwarf standard landlord policies. You need mandatory emergency evacuation procedures and a specialized administrator who must pass state certification exams.
Which means an investor's daily stress levels, margins, and, well, required skill sets are miles away from simply collecting a check on the first of the month.
This raises an important question, though.
Good.
If an investor wants to capture the stability of serving a vulnerable population, but they don't want the medical liability and massive operational burden of running a 24-hour care business under Title 22, what is the actual alternative?
Which is the exact pivot point of our deep dive today. The alternative is special needs housing.
Yes, special needs housing operates in a distinctly different lane.
How so?
Its primary focus is on community inclusion, accessibility, and providing a supportive physical environment. It is not acting as a state-licensed 24-hour care operator.
Okay, so let's define the demographic here. Who falls under this umbrella?
It is a deliberately wide category. It includes housing tailored for people with physical disabilities, individuals with developmental or intellectual disabilities, people transitioning out of homelessness, or those with mental health needs.
Got it.
But the crucial dividing line is the mechanism of care. In this model, providing the physical real estate does not mean you, the property owner, are providing the care.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. And honestly, I have to push back a little bit on the financial viability here.
Sure.
If we aren't relying on standard open market tenant demand, meaning I am not putting a listing on Zillow and hoping a dual income family rents my property, doesn't that artificially shrink my tenant pool?
I hear that all the time.
Right, because in a competitive market, narrowing your customer base usually increases your vacancy risk.
It is the most logical fear an investor can have, but it represents a fundamental misunderstanding of how managed demand actually works.
Okay, explain that.
When structured correctly, special needs housing creates a vastly more stable income profile than traditional open market multifamily properties.
I mean, I want to believe that. Walk me through the mechanics of that stability. How is the rent actually getting paid if my tenant might not have traditional W-2 employment?
Well, we need to look at the payment and sourcing mechanisms. In the traditional market, you are essentially fishing with a single line in a chaotic ocean, right?
Yeah, hoping for a bite.
Exactly. You deal with macroeconomic downturns, corporate layoffs, transient renters. You pay for marketing, you pay for tenant screening, and you absorb the turnover costs every single time someone moves out.
It's exhausting.
But in special needs housing, you bypass that open ocean entirely. You are working with established entities like California's regional centers.
Okay, let's define regional centers for anyone who hasn't encountered them yet.
Sure. Regional centers are private nonprofit corporations that contract directly with the California Department of Developmental Services. There are 21 of them across the state. Their mandate is to coordinate lifelong services and support for individuals with developmental disabilities.
Got it.
And here's the key. They have quantified, localized data on exactly who needs housing, what kind of housing they need, and where they need it.
So instead of fishing for one tenant, I am building a relationship with an organization that acts as a pipeline.
They are a pipeline and often a direct financial partner.
Really?
Yes. The mechanism of rent collection usually takes one of two forms. In some cases, the residents pay rent directly using their supplemental security income, or SSI.
Okay.
And that's often supplemented by Section 8 housing vouchers, which are government-backed and remarkably recession-resistant.
That makes sense. And the second form?
The second form is the holy grail for passive investors. It's the master lease.
Oh, tell me about the master lease.
A nonprofit agency or a supportive service provider leases your entire property from you for a multi-year term.
Wow, the whole thing.
The whole thing. They pay you a single guaranteed check every month. They then handle the subleasing to the individual residents, and they coordinate the outside care providers who come into the home.
That completely shifts the valuation of the asset.
Absolutely it does.
If I have a 5-year master lease with a well-funded nonprofit, my vacancy rate practically goes to zero.
Yep.
My tenant turnover costs, like painting, replacing carpets, marketing the unit, they all go to zero.
Exactly.
My cap rate stabilizes because the income is virtually guaranteed, regardless of what the broader job market is doing.
That is the core advantage. You are decoupling the real estate provision from the care provision.
Right.
You provide a high-quality, ADA-compliant, safe physical environment. The partnering agency provides or coordinates the supportive services. You are a landlord, not a healthcare administrator.
But the source material we are pulling from throws a pretty heavy caution flag here. It explicitly warns that this is not a hand the keys over and walk away scenario.
Oh, far from it. The risk doesn't disappear, it just shifts. Your risk is no longer Title 22 compliance, but rather partnership vetting.
That makes sense.
Right. If you sign a master lease with a disorganized nonprofit that, say, loses its state funding or fails to properly supervise the property, your stable investment unravels fast.
So you still have to do your homework.
You have to be meticulous. Success requires rigorous professionalism. You need ironclad lease agreements detailing maintenance responsibilities, strict adherence to fair housing laws, and a deep understanding of local zoning ordinances regarding unrelated adults living together.
Not to mention the actual physical location of the real estate.
That's a huge piece of it.
Right, because in a standard rental, you might drive value with ocean views or, like, luxury amenities. But in special needs housing, the real estate derives its value from utility and integration.
Yes.
If you buy a massive, beautiful property that is 10 miles away from the nearest bus line or medical center, it is functionally useless for a regional center's clients.
Exactly.
They need proximity to public transit, grocery stores, and community resources to foster independence.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really comes down to a moment of ruthless self-reflection for the investor before they ever deploy capital or sign a purchase agreement.
What do they need to ask themselves?
You have to look at your underwriting and ask the ultimate question. Am I pursuing a real estate model, a care model, or a hybrid of both?
Let's run a hypothetical acquisition to show the difference.
Sure.
Let's say you are an investor looking at a 6-bedroom property in Sacramento.
Okay.
If you choose the RCFE path, the care model, what does your first 90 days look like?
Oh, man. Well, if you are building an RCFE, you don't even look at paint colors. No, your first 90 days are entirely consumed by regulatory research. You are pulling local conditional use permits.
Yeah.
You are bringing in contractors to, quote, commercial fire sprinkler systems and commercial kitchen upgrades just to meet those Title 22 standards. You are interviewing state-certified facility administrators because you legally cannot open the doors without one. You are calculating debt service coverage ratios while factoring in that $15,000 a month minimum payroll we talked about earlier.
And if you try to figure the licensing out after you buy the property, you will have a massive mortgage coming due every month on a building that the state of California will actively injunct you from operating.
It is the fastest way to bleed out your capital. An RCFE investor has to be care-driven and compliance-obsessed from day one.
Okay, now let's rewind. Same investor, same capital, but they choose the real estate model. They want to provide special needs housing. What does their starting line look like?
Their starting line is heavily focused on community networking and accessibility underwriting.
Okay.
Before they buy that house in Sacramento, they are calling the Alta California Regional Center. They are meeting with local housing nonprofits.
What are they asking them?
They ask, what is your critical shortage right now? Do you need single-story homes for mobility-impaired adults? Do you need properties near the light rail?
You essentially secure the demand before you supply the asset.
Precisely. You find out what the community desperately needs, and then you go acquire a property that fits that specific physical profile.
That is so smart.
And then you verify if the local zoning allows for a residential care facility of 6 or fewer persons, which California law generally protects and treats the same as a single-family home.
Right.
You ensure the doorways can accommodate wheelchairs, you install the necessary physical modifications, and then you finalize the lease with the agency.
So what does this all mean? It means a complete mindset shift for anyone looking to deploy capital in this space. The core philosophy here is that the immense opportunity in a state like California isn't just holding the deed to a building.
No, any institutional fund with enough cash can hoard properties.
Exactly. The truly profitable, deeply impactful opportunity is controlling an asset that solves a tangible, quantified community crisis.
Which is why the ultimate takeaway from our sources is that investors must surgically separate assisted living and special needs housing in their minds.
They really have to.
Yes, both provide a safe haven. Yes, both serve populations that require empathy and support, but they are completely divergent business models.
One is a heavy operation, high liability, state-licensed healthcare business.
Right.
And the other is a passive, partnership-based, supportive real estate model. Lumping them together on a spreadsheet is how you lose your time, vaporize your capital, and just burn your momentum.
The margins for error in heavily regulated markets are practically microscopic. But for the investor who actually understands the mechanics of how rent is paid, how demand is funneled, and who holds the liability, there is an incredible blue ocean strategy here.
There really is.
You can generate incredibly reliable, recession-resistant yield while genuinely providing dignity and independence to people who need it most.
It proves that the old cliche holds up, you can do very well by doing good. But you have to respect the rules of engagement. You need ultimate clarity on the exact population you want to serve, the specific state codes that govern that population, and the structural reality of the business you are actually building.
That foundational education is the highest ROI investment you will ever make in this industry.
And if you are listening to this right now, realizing that you need to master the mechanics of these master leases, regional center pipelines, and asset modifications, we have the exact right next step for you.
It's a great resource.
You need to pick up a copy of The Joy of Helping Others, Creating Passive Income Streams Through Special Needs Housing, available now on Amazon. It is a phenomenal deep dive resource that breaks down how to structure these specific real estate investments so you can maximize both your community impact and your passive income.
It really is an essential operational manual for anyone who wants to execute the real estate model correctly.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on. We spent a lot of time today exploring how special needs housing bypasses the open market by relying on structural nonprofit partnerships rather than standard tenant demand.
Right.
Consider how traditional real estate relies entirely on fighting over individual renters, battling over amenities, slashing rent prices, and praying for renewals.
It's a constant battle.
If the future of stable passive income lies not in standard tenant demand, but in building integrated long-term partnerships with community agencies, how might that completely redefine what we consider to be valuable real estate over the next decade?
It changes everything.
Are we still just looking at the building, or are we finally starting to look at the community it serves? Keep that in mind next time you run the numbers on a property. Thanks for joining us.